Mike Farrell, Rivals.com here with Mike Locksley, head football coach of the Maryland Terrapins, who had a top 20 recruiting class, which is very impressive and not easy with all these schools coming into your state. Tell me how popular the DMV is when it comes to recruiting and how many guys you got to fight off.
Yeah, it's become very popular. I can remember back when you kind of got started in this business, and you'd have a couple schools in here, the Penn States, obviously North Carolina, but now I think, a lot of credit has to go to the high school coaches and the youth league coaches in this area for the job they've done to really, increase the teaching and the coaching of developing, an area that's always had talent, but maybe a little more raw talent. And you can just tell by the way the high school teams that have finished ranked in the top 25 across the country, the youth league programs that go out and win championships, that, football in this area has continued to steadily improve. And you see it with the type of schools that come down to the DMV to recruit the players here.
Yeah, I started to see it when I saw a kid named Stephon Diggs in 8th grade, and I was like, the Derek Harvey, Wesley Jefferson days are gone. This is a new state. So you did a good job in state. Let's talk about that first, because that's, you got to recruit inside out. A lot of these guys, I know you're excited about. Let's start with Damien Robinson, and I might be pronouncing that incorrectly, but he started off as a hybrid linebacker, can put his hand in the ground, highly rated kid out of Gaithersburg. What do you like about him?
Yeah, Chop, and I always kind of think back and use comparables, and he would be a comparable to a guy like Sean Merriman that I recruited to Maryland, back in the early 2000s, in that he is that hybrid. We base out of a 3-4. Obviously, we have the ability to go to an even front when we get into certain situations and packages. And so he's that guy that has the ability to play out in space, elite pass rusher, first step quickness, one of those guys that knows how to finish on the quarterback and played at a very high level and one of the highest levels of football in this state. So, what we look to do is increase our ability to rush the passer with this recruiting class and our front seven on defense. And there's no doubt that Damien fits the bill of what we were looking for as a pass rusher, as a disruptor, and a guy that has the ability to finish.
Now, you got a couple guys also from Florida. I mean, your linebacker class is the one it's going to get the most attention. Your JUCO kid and Spraggins, but you've got Terrence Lewis and Brandon Jennings, both coming from Florida, sort of roundabout ways. Terrence was committed to Tennessee and decided on Maryland, right around the early signing period. And Brandon, a legacy at Florida State, went to Michigan, over to Maryland. How important is it to remain involved in the recruiting process, even when they say they're going someplace else?
Yeah, in this day and age, I call them reservations. And when we get a commitment, I explain the difference between a commitment and a reservation. It's like calling a restaurant saying, hey, I want a table for 10 at 9. And if you don't show up, nothing happens. Well, things happen here. And so it's important that, when kids make decisions, and they make them for a lot of reasons. And I've noticed this wave of early decisions doesn't always mean it finishes. And it's the same in our situation when people continue to recruit our guys. And I think one of the best offenses or best defenses is to be on the offense. And so when people like to come and recruit our guys that we have committed, and you make them work to keep theirs. But I also think that it goes to show that Maryland, we have to start, and the base of our classes will be right here in the DMV. We don't have to go very far because of the type of football we have in this area. But with the longstanding relationships that we have in the state of Florida, places like Alabama, Georgia, the brand is not just a DMV brand, but a national brand, in that we've got a great location, great academics, and we're playing in a big time conference. And most of these kids are learning, we're moving into a $200 million football facility. So the resources are there to help take them to the next level or take them where they can't take themselves.
Big defensive class. I mean, 70% of this class is on defense. You talked about getting after the passer in the front seven. I mean, you've got probably double-digit guys front seven. How important is this class going to be for your defense? I mean, you got to hit on all these guys, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to. And the good thing is, last year we had to focus on our offensive line, and we signed 6 O linemen in that class. And, when you come in and again, we're just finishing up year 2, which is really like year 1 for me because we got here late after the national championship game with that first class. And then when you look at how the recruiting has gone during this pandemic, we're not in that second or going into third year development as a program just yet. But it's important that we had to fix the roster. We had scholarship numbers where we had 7 quarterbacks on scholarship. And then, we may had 5 receivers in one class. And so we've finally been able to kind of balance the numbers out to get us up to where we have needs at each position and we can fill them on a yearly basis and just balance it out. And so we've had to kind of take that approach. Last year it was on the O-line to fix that side of the ball. This year, the front 7. We feel like we've hit on all those guys and some really talented players. We're fortunate that a lot of these guys are right here in our backyard in terms of those guys that we were able to recruit and get committed in the early signing period.
And a lot of these guys had offers from a ton of other schools. So not only was it getting the commitment, but keeping the commitment, as you mentioned. So how aggressive are schools, even after a kid says, I'm going to Maryland? They don't care, right?
Yeah, I don't think they care. And I think they also know that, over the years, the evaluation that we have, we're not one of those programs that say, hey, we're going after 5-star and 4 stars. We're going after really good players. I mean, you look at a kid like Nick DeGennaro, who we signed in last year's class, had Monmouth as another offer and was starting to pick up steam. But we're going to go off of our evaluation, our needs, and if a kid fits and we feel we got a chance to get them, we're going to put the full court press to get it closed out. And so we definitely have to protect the kids once we commit them. And that's where all the extra work goes into, because not only do you have to recruit a recruiting class coming in, you've got to recruit your current roster with this whole instant eligibility. You've got guys in your program and maybe didn't play as much as they wanted to early, and now you've got to recruit them to stay. So we're recruiting 365 days out of the year, man. Your team as well as your next players that you're trying to get in here.
There's one guy on offense that I'm intrigued about, Antoine Littleton. Tell me a little bit about him. What position is he gonna play?
Yeah, he's coming in as a running back. We're one of those programs that when we don't make kids play positions they don't want to play. I found that when you force kids to play somewhere and they're not happy, they're not going to be in your program very long. So, Antoine is a running back. He has great skill set, very similar again to those comparables. A guy named James Lynch that we had here in our program back in the day, a big back with great feet, catches the ball well out of the backfield, and still has that little man's athleticism. We've got another big back in our program in Penny Boone that we signed last year that did a really good job. So Antoine is a versatile athlete, but he's a running back and he'll be a running back as long as he wants to be.
Yeah, and the reason I ask, he's 6'1", 270 pounds. So if you haven't checked out his film, anybody, watch him run the football. It's very interesting to see a guy that big move that well. I'm asking every coach I speak to today, which is dozens, about the transfer portal, how it changes the way you recruit. You mentioned re-recruiting kids or continuing to recruit your own team. Are you going to designate scholarships for the portal? Are you going to have a portal analyst, someone who's scouting other college football teams or lower level college? How are you handling the portal?
Yeah, just like everyone else. I mean, we've continued to build up our recruiting side of the building. We've got a director of recruiting position. We've got a director of player personnel that also has assistants under them. And so like everyone else, you obviously keep track of the transfer portal. We have needs, position needs when we go into starting our recruiting base for that season or that upcoming recruiting calendar season. And so we know what we're looking for. And there are times, for instance, if you're losing 3 senior offensive tackles and you only got 2 freshmen in your program, that you need to fill that gap in between. And so you may look for an older guy like you would a junior college player that may have the ability to come in and help immediately. But yeah, we'll definitely put some resources into looking at the transfer portal, similar to the waiver wire in the NFL. You check it, you see who's in it, you see what position groups you need. If there's somebody that pops in there that fits what you're looking for, you evaluate them just like you would any other recruit, and you pass it through our process. And if it's a go, it's a go. I think the biggest issue with the transfer portal is just managing your roster as you have it. And with everyone getting the extra year, or as we call it, the kind of gap year with this past season, we're all going to be trying to do new math and figure out ways to balance your roster, but also balance those scholarship numbers as we continue to move forward.
Do you think they'll extend the scholarship numbers just temporarily?
That's the tough one. I mean, as of right now, you're allowed to go over to 85 if you have guys that were going to graduate that decided to come back. How long that'll go on, I mean, we've kind of opened up Pandora's box with it, and now we've got to work to try to figure it out. And again, those decisions are made at the NCAA level, conference level, and I'm sure they'll come up with some type of method to help us get back to the 85 or maybe increase the numbers. Who knows? But every day is like a new day when it comes to the recruiting process as we still work through this pandemic.
Now, 3 years ago, the Big Ten East looked impenetrable for a program like Maryland, right? You got Ohio State, you got Michigan State was a high level program, Penn State. It doesn't look as bad now. So Maryland made some waves this past season. You didn't play a full schedule, didn't get to play all your games. What's the pitch to recruits? With that division, it's a tough division, but it's not as formidable as it looked a few years ago.
Yeah, I would disagree, man. You still got those three programs, and as you know, this thing goes in cycles. But I think anytime when you see a program and what Indiana was able to do, and Tom Allen has done a great job of building that program because of some of the things we've talked about early, transfer portal, the ability to recruit talented players. I mean, I believe personally that we've got the best location in the Big Ten, being so close to so many people in such a big media market, all these different things that are starting to come up favor where we are. And we've got good players here, and having been in this league at a place like Illinois before, I don't think anybody's invincible. And I think if you get the right kind of kids with the right mentality, you put a great coaching staff that's all in alignment together, anything can happen on Saturday. And that's the great thing about what college football brings. And, I'm excited about the opportunity Maryland has. There's no doubt that we have the ability to be a problem in this league. And we've got a lot of work to do to get to that situation. It starts with recruiting. We've been recruiting at a high level. We'll continue to do that, but now we've got to develop the players and take the next step.
All right, Lox, I'm always rooting for you. I appreciate your time here. I got my eye on that white helmet behind you. That's a pretty one. I like that. So
old school Terps.
The Randy White Terps, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Follow more for Maryland on rivals.com, and we'll have this interview up shortly. Thanks a lot, Lox.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Mike.